A biblical perspective on life, culture, and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Our guest today is Russ Matthews. He's from Third Space and the City Bible Forum, and he's got a new book called The Maker's Quest. It's been kind of likened to a modern-day Pilgrim's Progress. So we're going to be having a discussion today about, this new book, and this book's been described as a parable of the spiritual journey of our lives. Now, you may have heard of Pilgrim's Progress. It's like a modern version with a dash of Inside Out, Inception, Ready Player One, and While You Were Sleeping. There's a whole bunch there that we can describe. Russ is a well-known film reviewer, and his book is due for release next month called The Maker's Quest. As a film reviewer, Russ helps Christians engage with films without disengaging faith. He works with City Bible Forum's Third Space and leads Real Dialogue, a creative connection between the Christian faith and the entertainment culture. His earlier book was called The Word Becomes Film. So looking forward to having a chat with Russ today. I've heard him on the radio many times with Neil over the years, and it's the first time we've had a chat. Welcome to the airwaves, Russ. How you doing today, buddy?
I am doing great. I'm doing great, Matt. It is so good to be able to chat with you. I am looking forward to this time because, I've definitely heard the name, and I've looked forward to kind of getting to spend some time chatting with you. I will miss Neil, don't get me wrong, but I think that it'd be a great time to be able to kind of chat about the book, the ministries, and Jesus. It's always a great combination.
Absolutely, mate. Now, let's find out a bit of your story. Where were you born and raised?
Okay, so I grew up in Iowa, which is in the middle part of the United States, near Chicago. For those who geographically, I grew up in farm country, and that's where all of my family. So almost all my family were farmers and factory workers working at John Deere, and actually then also using the John Deere on the field. My mom and dad were kind of the black sheep of the family. My dad was a psychologist, and my mother was a CPA, and so they didn't work on the farm as much. But I grew up in a great home. I had loving parents. They took us to church on a regular basis, Matt. But it wasn't until I was 14 to an event. It's called Fellowship of Christian Athletes. They introduced me to really hearing the gospel for the first time. I can't say that the gospel. It wasn't that the gospel wasn't preached before. It's just I think it was the first time I really heard it and actually understood clearly who I was as a sinner, because I was a good kid. I was an athlete, a musician, all those sort of things, did good stuff. But it wasn't until I really heard the message of the gospel that the Lord really got a hold of my life. And throughout high school and university, I grew in my faith, but also I went to university, actually was in business. So I was in retail sales for years. I worked for a company called The Gap. And then I eventually went on to become a pharmaceutical rep. So I'm one of those guys that actually became a Christian and then became a drug dealer afterwards. So it's always one of those weird combinations.
I love it.
And but I was hopefully trying to save lives. But interestingly enough, during that time, a pastor got a hold of my life, a great friend. He's actually still one of my mentors, who said, Russ, I really think you ought to consider going into full-time Christian ministry, which I laughed at him because that meant that I would have to go back to Bible college. And I was one of those guys that crammed 4 years of university into 7. I took forever to finish my degree because I loved working. I loved what I did for a career. And so I just kind of kept going along on that track. But the Lord changed things for me. And a year later, I was in Bible college, raising support to come and do work here in Australia. And then 18 years ago, the Lord brought us all the way here to Australia. I've been working with City Bible Forum since then, so for the past 18 years, as well as Third Space. And then also I work with a church called Rouse Hill Bible Church. And it was probably about 10 years ago that we had the opportunity to start looking at film as a way of kind of engaging with the population in a way that was unique, and not just kind of saying, oh, this is a good film or this is a bad film, but really looking at the stories of the film and how these micro narratives really pointed to the meta narrative of God's story. Because every story, there's no original story. God wrote all stories into existence. And so really we can point back to God's story through all films. And so that's what we do at Real Dialogue. We engage with the Christians to be able to see how they can share their faith through the stories of film. But then also we engage with those who aren't Christian yet by being able to engage with them kind of where they are as far as with film. And so that's kind of what we do, kind of in a real quick synopsis. Oh, by the way, too, I'm married to an amazing woman named Kathy. We've been married for 32 years. We have 4 beautiful children and 6 lovely grandchildren.
Oh, fantastic, mate. Well, I love the fact that you love films and movies. I'm a big movie buff. I love movies.
Oh,
and
great.
As a pastor, I love finding a good analogy in a movie. I love finding a good story that relates to a topic that I'm preaching on. So I'm looking forward to unpacking that a little bit further throughout the conversation today. But let's turn our attention towards your new book. Tell us how The Maker's Quest came about.
Yeah, so like you'd mentioned before, I wrote The Word Becomes Film, and I promised, because a lot of people really enjoyed that because it was also an analogy. One of the things a little different with my books is that a lot of times people want a how-to. How do you do real dialogue? And we found that when we were doing the how-to books, they were really quite boring, because you're just kind of going through, here's how you do this, and how you do an event and all that. And the thing is about this ministry is that it's so exciting. I mean, when you get to engage with film, you get to engage with these stories. And so we're like going, this isn't really how it's going to work very well. So why not do it in a story? And so do it as an analogy. And so The Word Becomes Film was a parable of 2 characters who coming together and really kind of engaging with film, but then also really engaging with Jesus and seeing how you're able to do that. So then I was going to write my second book I actually had written, and it was more along those lines, but it was based on marriage. But along the way, the Lord provided this story of Cyrus Rover. And Cyrus Rover is a young film student it's more of a young adult story, but really it kind of connects with so many people because all of the different stories. And so what happens is that he ends up in a bicycle accident, ends up in a coma, and then finds himself traveling through a spiritual journey similar to, as you mentioned before, the Pilgrim's Progress. But he meets different mentors along the way from classic films. Because he's a filmmaker, he himself that's how he's wired. But from each one of these, he actually sees some of the attributes of God. He starts to learn more about who he is and also who the maker is, being God in his life, and how that will affect him. And then along that, also with the parallel that goes along with that, you also have his family who are praying for him, and the medical team that's kind of taking care of him and their spiritual journey as he's going through this himself. And so it's really kind of almost 2 stories in one, but it is so much fun. I fell in love with this character more and more as we've gone through the editing process, and just the opportunities engaging with film, but really engaging with faith and moving people towards having a better understanding of who God is in their life, or really getting to know the Maker themselves.
I just love the fact that this young guy meets a whole bunch of famous filmmakers along the way. Tell us about some of the people he meets. I'm curious.
Well, okay, so it's not actually filmmakers, they're actually characters in the stories. And so it was interesting because I had them specifically tagged as these individuals I was going through it. And then my editor turns to me and he goes, "You better get a really good lawyer because all these guys are all copywritten. And so you're not going to be able to do it." So we rewrote the book. I rewrote the book, but I rewrote the chapters. And so I have one mentor, but he manifests himself in different genres. And so you can go through and kind of pick out the characters. And so it could be, is it Gandalf or is it Dumbledore? I'm not sure exactly which one as we kind of go through the fantasy genre. And then you go through a genre that's kind of the old gumshoe police officer back in the 1930s during the Depression era. Is that the Untouchables? I don't know, kind of going through it. And so you have people that kind of are reminiscent of, say, Indiana Jones or maybe even Yoda, but yet as these great mentors that we know from film, how they can speak into it. And now actually this character, Elijah, actually takes on kind of these different personas to connect with this young man, but then really point him towards the message of the Bible. And so the Bible is actually all kind of interspersed throughout it all. It's not like all of a sudden there's chapter and verse. It's really just the words of Elijah are actually coming through in the storyline, but then also how it impacts him. Along the way, too, Cyrus actually has a bag with him the whole time. He's actually given this kind of journey. It's a bag that actually is reminiscent of Ephesians 6. And so really looking at the armor of God and how that really helps us in the journey along the way. And so it's a great way for us to be able to do that because we have some different resources that kind of go along with that.
Yeah, I'm curious to know about this. So you've got some discussion guides, there's Cyrus Rover's journal and the Lost chapter. Tell us about these resources.
Oh, right. Wow. There you go. Yeah. So the discussion guides, well, specifically, we go to Cyrus Rover's journal. So we found it, and so you go through specific chapters where it's tagged that, oh, this is a discussion on justice. And so we have a discussion guide where you can have a discussion with another person. Because actually, we really think, like when you go to the movies, you enjoy going to a movie, you enjoy going with someone. I think reading a book like this, you really almost, it'd be better if you're actually reading it with somebody, and then you can have a discussion about it. So the discussion guides are there. And with the Cyrus Rover's journal, which actually is free with the book, you just click on the link and it takes you right to the discussion guide. And you can print them off if you want to, if you're old school, but if you just want to do it online, you can do it that way. And then my editor, she said, there's so many other genres. I said, yeah. She said, well, why don't you write a lost chapter or something? We can maybe do that as kind of a gift to the audience. And I said, okay, I could try that. And we did it. And it ended up being a lot of fun. It actually introduces a new character. And it is free to all those who kind of get the book, so you're able to kind of go through and check out the lost chapter. And if the book, depending on how the book goes, that could be potentially another a whole other storyline, because there's so many great genres that you can kind of connect with that naturally connect with specific characters and also genres within the Bible that would really be able to kind of, and also everybody kind of has a different journey. And so Cyrus's is one, but we also have potential for so many others. I guess the multiverse, as it were.
Yes, very cool. Now, we are going to continue this conversation throughout the next half an hour or so, but we should just pause here for a moment in case people would like to get a copy of the book. What's the best way to get their hands on it?
Sure. Well, it doesn't come out until May 13th. So I was like going, woo, we got a little bit of time. Yep. So the best way to get it is either through thirdspace.org.au, and that's thirdspace.org.au, or you can go straight to Amazon. What's amazing about it, by doing it on Amazon, is that it'll be to your house probably within 2 to 3 days, because it's a direct, we don't have like thousands sitting in a warehouse. They print it right there for you and send it off to you. So it should be there within 2 to 3 days.
Now, Russ, I'm curious to know about Third Space. This is something we hear on Vision Radio quite a bit. We hear about, God in 60 Seconds and thirdspace.org.au. Tell us about, what is Third Space?
Yeah, it's really just kind of a basic thing, Matt. I mean, one of the things I really love about what we have with here, just a second, let me check something.
Are you there?
Yep, I'm still here.
Yep.
All right, we're all good. And so with Third Space, our goal is to get the conversation started. So we're really kind of at the front end of kind of the whole discussion about Jesus. It's really meeting people where they are with the message of the gospel. And so our goal is to get the conversation started, but then also to get people in communities. And the third space is, we say everybody needs a third space, is not necessarily home, it's not necessarily work, but it's that place where you engage with the deeper questions of life, where we can kind of move people closer to having a message of the gospel. Now, I know that many of the Christians out there will go, well, that's church. I said, yes, but the thing is that most of our non-Christian friends, or our Christian, the people who aren't Christian quite yet, or inquirers, won't necessarily come to church, but yet they still want to engage with the deeper questions of life. We can move them down that track towards meeting Jesus and then also getting involved in a good local church. But we need to get them to the point of kind of being in an atmosphere where they can have these conversations. So it's communities that go and, you can go bowling, you can be going out and you can be going to watch a movie even, or book club, or just even hanging out at the local cafe or the local pub, and just be able to have these deeper conversations. And so that's the third space. So that's what we're really trying to help people to do. And so we try to help people organize that and how they can start those conversations. We have boatloads of discussion guides on different topics, but then on top of it, we just really kind of help people to kind of enjoy kind of being creative and thinking of how they can do that.
Fantastic. And if you want to call through, have a chat with Russ Matthews, give us a call, 1-800-316-316. We've got Anne from Labrador. How are you, Anne?
Hi, fine, thank you. The two movies that really helped me develop in anything was The War Room, about prayer and how powerful that is, and Jesus Revolution and how that can happen. And we're just praying that will happen here in our country as well eventually, and how the young people got a hold of it and really won. And I know that some of the universities in America are doing that. So we just pray for out here that it will set young people on fire and get them to know Jesus and who he is. So those two movies were the ones that really sort of spoke to me.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts, Russ?
Oh, and you picked two really, really good films. I mean, because the Kendrick brothers, you can't go wrong with the Kendrick brothers. You got to love it. I had a chance to interview Alex here recently, and they just love using film as a way of kind of getting people to the story of the gospel. And so the War Room also, I just love how it also focuses on prayer and seeing the value of prayer and the importance of that. Jesus Revolution, my friend, wow, that was an amazing film, amazing story, Greg Lowry story. I think that it's one that hopefully would resonate. It did actually impact. I actually was sitting next to somebody in the screening who actually came to Christ through the ministries that occurred right around that time with the Jesus Revolution. And I think that it can. And again, the thing is, we can be praying for it, and also we can really trust in the fact that the Lord will and can actually make a movement like that again, maybe in a different way, in a different form, but I think that these are definitely two films that are worthwhile engaging with.
Fantastic. And thank you so much for your call. And we've got Christine from Glen Innes on the line. Are you there, Christine?
Yes, I am.
What would you like to chat about with Russ today?
I just, sometimes the titles of movies don't really indicate how good the movie's going to be. And a couple of weeks ago, my husband and I watched a movie called Play the Flute. It was about a new youth pastor who tried to reach his uninterested youth group, and it was sort of a story that was just really wonderful, and it really got the gospel message out there. And I guess I just wanted to let people know about it because it's really worth watching. It's on Good TV at the moment, so that's why I called, because it was so good.
I've seen that movie before. I loved it. Russ, have you seen that one yet?
You know what? You win. It's one of those movies I haven't seen. So it's definitely, there's so many great ones out there. And also so many unfortunately, a lot of the Christian films don't necessarily make it over here to Australia. Yeah. This one just came out just a few years ago, about 5 years ago. And so, yeah, I love it. I definitely have to check it out myself, but also I love hearing how it impacted you, Christine. And then also getting the opportunity of engaging with it and allowing other people, because that's one thing I love about films is you can suggest them to other people. And kind of go, hey, this one really touched me. I'd love to talk to you more about that. And it sounds like this one really did that for you.
Yeah, it did. It was actually a fantastic movie. That the title sort of perhaps let it down a little bit. I don't know, but we're like, couldn't believe what we were watching. Like, how do we not know about this?
Right.
No, I'd certainly recommend it. It's a great movie. Play the Flute. And it's on Good TV, so you can download the Good app. You can watch it. They're also on Foxtel as well, I think, the Good, which is formerly the Australian Christian channel,
Yes.
There you go.
Yep.
Good on you, Christine.
Thanks so much.
Hey, just what's the weather like in Glen Innes? Bit cold at the moment?
A bit chilly. The sun's not coming out. Heading into winter, not looking forward to that. But anyway.
Thanks for your call, Christine. God bless.
No worries. Thank you. Bye.
And phone lines are open on 1800 316 316. Maybe you want to talk about your favourite film that's impacted you. We've got Stacey from the Sunshine Coast. How are you, Stacey?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you.
What would you like to chat about?
Yeah, I just thought I'd let you know, my son, he's 19, he's in America right now doing a drama internship in a Christian drama school. But as part of his trip over there, he went to the Christian Worldview Film Festival in Georgia, Albany, where the Kendrick Brothers Church is. And yeah, it was. I watched some of the streams, and it was amazing. Like, they really, they aim at, the filmmakers, producers, all different types of film, and they have pre-screenings of different films and stuff. So he has actually already got to see The Forge. He said it's amazing. But the main thing I think is that really stuck out for me is they have such a heart of, you need to be a disciple before you can act, before you can make any film. You really need to be a disciple of Christ. So they're awesome people at that Sherwood Church.
Russ, what are your thoughts, mate?
Oh, the Kendricks, they are groundbreaking, and they're still continuing to break ground. And I really love what they're doing and all that they've been able to do with their current films, but also how they're showing the value of the community. And I really appreciate the fact, too, because I have a nephew who's actually an actor in Hollywood, Christian, trying to live that life out, trying to be able to kind of be that influence and be the salt and light in a very dark world. And so I think that for you to be able to do that and allow your son too to be able to even be a part of that is fantastic, especially the creative arts. I think the creative arts, there's such a high value, and unfortunately so many times Christians pull ourselves out of that. So to see the value, but then too, I agree with the Kendricks in saying that having your strong stance in your faith, especially in Jesus, is so important, especially when you're working in an industry like that. Whenever I go and do a film screening, I say it's the light in the dark room. I'm usually the only Christian in amongst all the other critics. But yet being in that room, being in that space gives me opportunity to speak into their lives in a very unique way, which I think that's really what your son has the opportunity of doing. And also I think that's really the value of, say, the Kendrick Brothers ministry.
Yeah, no, they're incredible people. The whole church.
Yeah, they are.
He was there last year as well, and yeah, really good.
And Stacey, I haven't seen The Forge yet, obviously. Hopefully it'll be out soon in Australia. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he said it is so good. He said it's really, really good. And he also got to see Unsung Hero. So they do like a little...
Oh, cool.
They do 3 days of like intensives for all the actors and, producers and that. And then they have 2 days of like people send in short films that they've created. They're all Christian. And yeah, they have little, like a winner at the end and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, they get to see the screening. So very, very good. He loved it. It was like a life-changing experience. It's a week long in March. I think they've done...
Well, Stacey, you've just dropped out there for a sec, but I'll just mention I actually had a friend message me yesterday. She used to be an actress with NIDA and did training in Sydney, and she sent me the link to the Unsung Hero trailer, and she said, "Have you heard about this?" And I said, "Yeah, I work at Vision Radio, and we play a lot of For King and Country." For those who don't know, it's the story of the Smallbone family when they moved over to the US, and Rebecca St. James, kind of was discovered in the movie, and so Unsung Hero is about their life story. But anyway, this friend of mine said that the lead actress who plays Helen Smallbone, the actress is actually from Brisbane, and she's a Catholic girl, so she's given me her details, and I'm trying to line up an interview, so that'd be pretty cool.
Very cool.
I can't wait to see Unsung Hero. Are you there still, Stacey?
Yes. Yeah.
Very cool. You just dropped out there a minute ago. Before we wrap up with you, Stacey, did you have a favourite film you wanted to mention as well today?
Probably at the moment it'd have to be Jesus Revolution, I think.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Life-changing movie, absolutely.
That's good. And good quality. That's the thing I loved about it. You know what I mean? It wasn't just a good movie. It was actually really good quality, great cast and everything like that with it.
And having Kelsey Grammer, I mean, that's pretty cool. Having been a Christian movie, that's awesome. Yeah,
Frasier. So good.
All right, Stacey, thanks so much for your call.
No problem. See ya.
God bless. Bye. And if you'd like to call through and join the conversation, maybe there's a favourite film you want to talk about, a Christian film or a mainstream film that's impacted you. We've got an expert with us today, Russ Matthews from Third Space. He's an author as well. Maybe you want to talk about his new book, The Maker's Quest. We've got him for about another 10 minutes or so. Give us a call, 1-800-316-316. Now, Russ, I had a Zoom call last week with a guy named Young Go, who is behind the Jesus animated film, which is coming out in 2025, I think at Christmas. And we've all heard of the Jesus movie, which was one of the biggest, evangelistic movies of all time.
Still is, yeah.
Still is.
Mm-hmm.
They've kind of got together and they're making kind of an animated version that's aimed at 9 to 12-year-olds. And is it like VR as well? Tell us what you know about this new film they're working on.
Oh, you know what? I got to interview Dominic, who's Carol, who's actually the director of this.
Yeah.
And the quality that they're already showing about this film, and they're pretty much it's going to be almost a frame by frame in a lot of ways. They'll have to shorten it because it's being an animated film, because I believe the Jesus film is over 2 hours, and I believe that the animated film is going to only be about an hour and a half, which is kind of your traditional films. But I think they're just going to honor pretty much the original story, the original film, but do it in quality animation. So, I mean, they're bringing in different creators and different animators from Disney and all these different houses that are able to really kind of invest in the quality of the film. And then on top of it, the story is one that we would be able to know and trust, that has been a part of the original Jesus film. And so what's great about that is they'll be able to use a lot of the different translations, because it's been translated into hundreds of different languages. And so for them to be able to do that along those lines. And so with these events that they're going to be kind of promoting it over the next year, but just really kind of encouraging churches to consider doing an event in the cinemas, and actually, because it will be a great way for you to be able to reach families. I think this is what's very unique about this, is that it'll be for the young as well as for the parents and for the grandparents and all that to be able to enjoy together. And so, yeah, we're looking forward to seeing this film as it comes out and just being a part of that process.
Very cool. Phone lines are open, 1-800-316-316. Our guest is Russ Matthews from Third Space and the City Bible Forum. He's an author, film reviewer, and just a nice bloke. If you want to call through and have a chat, give us a call, 1-800-316-316. And we've got Matthew from Brisbane. How are you, Matt?
Oh, I'm not bad for a young fella. How are you, gentlemen?
Any fitter, I'd be dangerous.
Makes two of us, mate.
What would you like to chat about?
Actually, I've only sort of come in the last probably 5 or so minutes, been talking about movies, but you mentioned that Russ as an author has written, I'm assuming, what would be a fiction, is it? Or because, like I said, I've only come in the last 5 minutes.
Yes, so Russ has released, is about to release a book which is, you'd call it a fiction, Russ?
Yeah, I mean, so this would be, it's more of a parable, but yeah, it would be a work of fiction in the sense that it's not based on a true story. Even though my last book was also a parable, but funny, I had all my friends reading through it going, but I know that person, and I know that conversation that you had, and all these different things. So they're based on actual experiences, but they are fiction, mainly so that people are able to connect the stories and be able to kind of continue on. Yeah.
Okay, the reason I ask that is I'm a bush poet, and I've had a crack at writing a novel, but I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, and I just was curious at your thoughts. It actually came from a dream I had as a 20-year-old. It was I think there was a level of prophecy to it and what God was showing me at the time, but I've sort of taken that and turned that into a novel. But if the book was made into a movie, it would be classified as a horror. Now, me myself, I can't watch, because I've got such a vivid imagination. I actually can't watch that kind of movie because I find it just messes with my head all night. But I just curious your thoughts. Like Christian, it would almost be classified as Christian horror, but it's not really about that. It's sort of the story I've written is about these guys who just have to rely on Christ and rely on their faith and rely on the armour of God, but it's sort of using the armour of God in the natural is sort of where the story's going. I just, as a fellow, as someone who's written, what are your thoughts on that kind of genre? Because I'm getting a lot of knockbacks and a lot of sort of negative feedback on it, so...
Oh, just so you know, as an author, you're going to get a lot of negative feedback. Full stop. It's not even the fact that it's what genre. It's just some people will say, "Well, you can't do this, you can't do that." I think really you need to kind of consider what it is that the Lord wants you to do and kind of move forward with it. I find that I found that I see all types of films. We watch numerous types. Our team actually goes and sees different ones. I think that you kind of point all the way back even to like Frank Peretti and some of his writings way back when, and so many of them that are kind of have that kind of horror feel to it, if you would want to. And I found that with many horror films, even kind of mainstream horror films, that you can get to the spiritual quite quickly if you're willing to. And there's so many people who really enjoy that genre of film and engage with it. I'm kind of like, I'm right there with you, Matt. I have a guy who actually usually does most of my horror films because it kind of plays with my head a little bit too much. But I don't necessarily discredit it, but also I would really... as far as the genre itself and the considerations, and it can be quite effective. And so, because I think there was a film was Nefarious that came out here recently that was a Christian film that was kind of based on a horror genre. Steve Dace was kind of, I think, the producer of that one. And I think it's definitely something worth considering. But again, Matt, what I would say to you is just pray about it, consider it, and then kind of say if this is what the Lord really wants you to do with that story that it's worthwhile engaging with. So you're going to always have critics every single time, but the best thing to do is for you really to follow what you think the Lord wants you to do with that story.
Fair enough. Thank you for your feedback, mate. Because it's you know yourself as a writer, you try not to take feedback personally, but sometimes when you just have, just repeated knockbacks, you sort of get to a point where, and this book would be on its 53 right at the moment. Mate, I appreciate your feedback. Thank you for that.
No worries, man. Hey, I hope it goes well, and stay safe up at the skies, okay?
Will do, mate. You too.
And Matthew, if you do want to contact Russ, what's the website that he can go to if he wants to find your details?
Sure. Yeah, it's realdialogue.com. It's pretty easy. It's REEL dialogue.com. Also, we're on the Third Space website, which is thirdspace.org.au, but Real Dialogue's pretty easy. So REEL dialogue.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Russ.
Good on you, Matt. Thanks for your call.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, guys.
And phone lines are open on 1-800-316-316. We've got Cheryl from Maryborough. How are you? Okay, hang on. I've just got to drag her down. I've got to get the computer thing sorted here. There we go. There she is. Are you there, Cheryl?
When it works.
Cheryl, are you there? Okay. Oh, hang on. This one here. There you go. I got the right button. Cheryl, are you there?
Yes, I am.
What would you like to chat about?
Cheryl.
A lot of the movies that have been mentioned, I've seen most of them and enjoyed them, but another one that comes to mind is I Can Only Imagine.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Great song and great movie. Yeah. And also another set of brothers who actually did that one, the Irwin brothers. So we got to, they, as far as the directors of that one, and just a great story. So yeah, it's a really good one. But then on top of it, a good quality, you had Dennis Quaid in the cast and everything. So they really did a great job of kind of honoring that story, right?
And I've shared it to a lot of people, and quite a few people in the church, if they've got a good movie, they'll share it, and so I do the same. Yes.
Yeah. Well, there's a film that's been out in theaters that'll probably be coming on streaming soon. It's called Ordinary Angels. It's put out by the same guys. So as far as the same team that kind of put that movie together, and it's based on a true story, beautiful story with Hilary Swank. Definitely worthwhile checking out. So, but I definitely agree with you. I Can Only Imagine was really good.
Okay.
Good on you, Cheryl. Thanks for your call.
Thank you. Bye.
God bless. And we've got to wrap it up in just a moment. But I just wanted to say, Russ, it's been so good to finally chat with you. I've heard you on the air with Neil many times. Once again, if people want to find out more, they can go to realdialogue.com. That's REEL, realdialogue.com. Or they can go to thirdspace.org.au. And I want to encourage people to check out this new book. It's called The Maker's Quest. It's a modern-day Pilgrim's Progress. And it's released in about a month's time. Is that right?
Yeah, on the 13th of May, you should be able to get that either at Amazon or at the Third Space website.
Fantastic, Russ. Well, mate, it's been awesome catching up with you today. Thanks so much for your time. God bless.
Oh, Matt, this has just been a pleasure. Anytime you want to have a chat, don't hesitate to reach out. I'll always love talking about faith and film and Jesus. This is great. So anytime.
Awesome, Russ. Thanks so much, mate. God bless.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.